Hello gang. Okay, so today, here we are in Dartmoor National Forest again. We're going to talk about wet climates and how they handle the excess moisture. So previously we've spoken quite a bit about mosses and their role in retaining moisture and helping to establish soil bases for other plants to come in, for providing habitat for small critters. Now we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about moisture on trees and on human structures. So rather quickly, we're going to take a look at the roof. This is a relatively new roof for this building, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of very, very thick moss. What that moss is doing is attempting to colonize a flat surface and reduce the amount of moisture that's flowing across it. So say we were to give that another 5 or 10 years, you would then see additional things growing in there that had been brought in via seed droppings through birds or perhaps even blown there. So let's take a peek at something a little bit more obvious. Okay, so mosses are a great indication of healthy air quality. So if we take a peek at this tree, this probably was cut down, I don't know, it looks like maybe sometime in the last 20 years, probably at least 10 years ago. And the amount of rot on this is pretty extreme. And what the mosses have gone in is they've colonized the trunk of the tree, and they probably did that long before the tree died. See, as you see, the live trees here are quite mossy. And again, this is to absorb the excess amount of water running across the surface of not just rocks but also plants. And we can see that this has provided the base for other plants to grow. So if you can see to the right hand side of this tree, those are strawberries growing up the side of the tree. Typically, if you're going to grow mosses, say in a hanging basket, or sorry, strawberries in a hanging basket, moss is a really, really good substance to grow those strawberries in because they help to retain moisture. And then if we look a little higher up, you can see there's a clump of grass growing in there. So again, these are things that the seed has landed in that space and found a really nice area to grow in and has grown quite happily. And the moss has helped to, it's essentially eating the tree. It's helping to break it down. There's also termites in there, as we can see at the bottom. There's actually termite tracking in there. I don't know if you can see that through the camera. And so mosses provide a variety of functions. They're cleaning the air as they're collecting moisture. And here we are in another human structure, and here on the face of the concrete we have moss colonies. So if we look at the front of this, there's very little moss action here, and quite a bit on the one side. So they have a tendency to grow typically on the north side of trees and buildings, but they will grow on essentially any flat surface. So if we look at this wall, it's quite smooth, pretty intact. I believe this was put in sometime in the 1950s or 60s. And then if we look at the top, we can see the amount of erosion that's happened just because of the sheer amount of water and rainfall here in Dartmoor National Forest. This is an exceptionally wet place. We're what I would consider to be highland. We're a bit on the side of a mountain. So there's lots and lots of moisture here year round. And again, we're seeing these mosses have come in and they're colonizing it because it's an excellent space for them to grow. They really quite like this. You know, without them, there would not be soil clinging to the top of this space. So the mosses come in, they gather these little bits of organic matter. The organic matter breaks down, creates a soil, and then we have other plants that come in and colonize this space as well. So moss is something that's quite fabulous in a wet environment because it's the groundwork for all these other plants. So, okay, so as we come along here, this area is quite bare. We move along, and now we're seeing all these other plants. There's geraniums in here, there's violets in here. There's quite a bit of life and action going on the top of this otherwise pretty inhospitable space. You know, there's not any nutrients being offered here without the mosses growing. So the moss is quite happily providing shelter and habitat and the ability for other plants to grow. And as we move down, so if you can see here, there's a bit of a gap behind this wall. So we're not seeing moisture running directly off the hill and onto the top of the wall there. But here, as I pull back, you almost can't tell the difference between the top of the wall and the hillside because it's gathered. And we can see that this is quite a bit more grown in than this area. And it's strictly because the water has the ability to grow over. Mosses would have had more of an ability to access this space. And again, we're seeing strawberries and violets and all kinds of other lovely plants that are growing in here. I'll give you an example of just how extreme that is when it has the ability to just get right on top. Again, if I had put the camera here, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the hillside and the top of the wall. So mosses do an excellent job of colonizing otherwise bare spaces and holding moisture to the ground. Isn't this beautiful? I'm just going to hold this up so you can hear the birds here as well. You probably have to have pretty excellent speakers to hear this, but it is just fabulous. All right, well, thanks again for joining me. Hope you guys are having a lovely day.